and welcome back to the show. My name is Angel Lorenzana, and I got my co-host over here,
Rafa.
And today we have a special guest. He is a good friend of ours.
Special guest.
Very special guest.
Special
Hell yeah,
guest.
man. He's an actor, musician, comedian, right? Just all around artist and interesting human. That's what I think.
That's a fancy way of saying ADHD.
Is it?
Lifelong ADHD.
Oh man.
Yeah, man.
How you feeling today? How you doing?
Man, dude, I feel good.
You feel good?
Real good.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah. Thank you.
You couldn't wait to have
South of the Gulf of What the Fuck Brothers. Whatever we call it now.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
What are we talking about?
Well, first, because there's one thing that I want to bring up first, because when I first seen you, I knew I recognized you from somewhere.
Okay.
Something from my childhood when I was just growing up, right? And I was like, what is he? Where do I recognize him from? And I'm surprised, like all the other comics haven't heard about this, or I've heard about it from anyone else. But when I was looking through your bio, and I was like, that's where I know him from American Idol, right? You were.
I didn't do the actual show.
You were the judge, right?
I was one of the judges.
Yeah.
They had a
called
American Idol Experience.
Okay.
Out in Disney, out in Orlando.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a couple of TV blurbs for them and all that kind of stuff. That's a really interesting thing to start with.
Am I confusing you with one of the other?
There was Randy Jackson on the show.
So I'm confusing you with him.
You're confusing me with him.
Damn, right off the bat, I'm already fucking up.
Here's what was so cool about it. When we did the show, it was grand and big, and we sent. The way they had the show is people would come and compete, and at the end of the day, whoever won what they call the golden ticket could go in front of any idol audition in the country. So that was a coveted ticket. So just before the season would start, singers from all over the globe, I kid you not, would descend upon us in Orlando and compete.
Okay.
And then over the years, we did it from 2009 to 2014.
Yeah.
We sent something close to, I think, 15 or 16 people who made it into the top bracket as the seasons ended. But the funny thing about it is when they decided to do that show, the audition information said they didn't want anyone like judges on the show because they wanted to create their own judges.
Okay.
So I came into the auditions and people had already told me, you kind of look like Randy Jackson. So I grew a beard.
you were a bit heavier also.
I was heavier at the time. I grew a beard. I tried to not look like Randy Jackson.
Okay.
Because they said in the information they wanted judges not like on television. They wanted to create their own judges. And I went through and I found out, to make a long story short, that the reason they kept going back and forth with me, they were sending footage out to LA. And Simon Fuller signed off saying that I was different enough in my personality. And he actually, something I love that he said is that I was a more hip, more intellectual version of a Randy Jackson.
Okay.
But yeah, he's very cool also.
It is cool, man. And we did the show out in Orlando. It was a blast, man. And people found out quickly that I was kind of a blend of Simon and
but at the same time, I want you to
see that. That's good.
I want you to know also that he has the capability of imitating him also, which that makes a big difference right there. If he really wanted it, or he really choose to do so at that time, point, of moment, he can do Randy Jackson. Perfectly.
Yeah. But
this is actually funny because that's how I met him. The first time I met this guy, I used to work for Disney World, and I took I don't remember the name of the guest. To tell you the truth, it was a VIP that I took him to the green room because they were doing the soap opera weekend or whatever the thing they were doing over there. So we had some of those actors and stuff like that. So I took him to the green room. He told me, I'm gonna take a nap, come back for me, half an hour where we have the other show, whatever, the Q&A, whatnot, and signing autographs or whatever. So I left the VIP inside. I came out. And as I'm walking by, you're sitting right there, like on the exit of the green room, talking to somebody else. And out of my right eye, I see a huge watch. And I'm like, oh, nice watch. In a way that I was surprised how big it was, but at the same time, kind of like making fun of like, motherfucker, that's a huge, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying?
That was a fat watch.
Exactly.
So have that watch?
No.
So we started talking just for like a minute or so. Oh, yeah. And then I recognized, okay, you doing the Jackson. Okay, I got it. Okay, cool. Nice to meet you. And that was it. That was it. That's what the first time I met him. Of course, I didn't know his name. I didn't know nothing. Then, like years, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago, I met you again at Bar PM. You were talking to someone right there at the bar in the back. And then you start talking about Disney World. That's when it hit me. Wait a second, I didn't know you. And then we start talking back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they would once they hired us, and I mean, the auditions were like there were thousands. I mean, it's ridiculous. It was one of the biggest auditions I've ever been to, and it went all day. They would bring you in 3 judges at a time, and then have singers sing for you, and you had to critique them.
Okay.
And they wanted you to be insightful, funny, and you had to give your credits. You had to give actual credit.
Okay.
Like you had to say, you know, when I would say, well, when I was at the Apollo, because it gave you status, and it had to be a real credit. And so we had to do that over and over again with these singers, and then they narrowed the field, and then over a month's time they had callbacks, kept bringing up, and that's when I found out the reason they kept bringing me back in and rotating me in is they wanted to make sure there was a separation between me and Randy Jackson. But it was a blast, man. Like I said, I did it from 2009 to 2014.
Okay.
It had to be a lot of fun being an asshole from time to time.
Oh, man.
Where it was singing like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah. You know, I would just, you know, what was on my mind, you know, a lot of judges had
Being
what
a
they call
comedian.
stock material, but I was
Being a
just what
comedian.
was on my mind, man.
God, I
Like,
can only imagine.
yeah, it's like you hit more keys than a drunk hurricane. What the, you know, you're singing in E flat. What's from, you know, singing in K sharp. I'd make up notes and blast. It's so much fun. And we had some time when the show was on fire and you had some really great singers.
No, I seen a lot of talented people because I used to go see like when they were trying to get cast members or for a play or this and that.
Yeah.
And they have these auditions and they're in line and they're like practicing or doing their little dance or they're singing or when you're like, oh my God.
Well, like I said,
so
just
many talented
before the
people.
season would start, some of the world's greatest singers would descend because they wanted that ticket.
Yeah.
And so all of our shows around that time would be fire, man.
That had to be a privilege also.
You get to the end of the day at the finale, you had 4 or 5, like, I kid you not, like the level of Whitney, Celine Dion, you know,
just
Usher,
imagine that.
or, you know, I mean, you had these great pop singers. And a couple of them would be extended to opera or Broadway. They had that thing going on, but fantastic, man. We saw some singers in those years. You know, you saw the bottom of you saw like both extremes. You know, I remember this guy came on and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? We had Jesus. There's a park.
What?
There's a park called, what's the name of that park in Orlando? It's
From Universal or
no. It's an actual park that's centered around Jesus.
Oh, there was the Jesus.
It's a name for it.
Something experience. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. Down the road
That's a
from
theme
Disney.
park.
It's
Yeah,
a small
that's a
little
theme
park.
park. Yeah.
Well, there Jesus came and sang Bohemian Rhapsody
Nice.
for us.
Don't tell me he did it as Jesus.
He
was wearing that outfit? Okay.
He just came and did it.
But he still looked
I
like
recognized him. Yeah. I took my Coke bottle and poured water on the thing and told him to walk on it. But we had fun.
Only
He was
fucking
pretty
made it.
good. He wasn't, he wasn't Freddie Mercury, but he was.
But he was decent
pretty
enough.
good. He was pretty good, man. He couldn't get those, He would barely be getting on those notes that Freddie Mercury was sailing on. We'd have people do that, They come. It's like, why would you choose that song?
If
Like
it's
they
that
come out and
difficult.
they choose Alone by Heart, and you go, well, that big note's coming. It's not going anywhere, at the middle of the song. And it's like, I'm going to do Kings of Leon. And we would all just kind of turn like, really? Are you? Okay, let's see what you got. Yeah. But some of these singers, they see the people on television and, it's like the 3 of us, it's like when you're in your shower, you think you're in concert, I'm hitting all the notes and then you get in front of people and you're like, no, you're not hitting all the notes. You're like, you're sharp or because we usually would get pretty good singers, but who thought they were 10 times better than they were.
The ego and all that stuff that gets.
Yeah. And then you go, no, you're okay. You're all right. You all right. You ain't.
No, the problem also with that is that anybody could sign in.
That's
Anybody
right.
who went to the park to sign in,
Sign
bro.
in, yeah.
So sometimes you got the worst of the worst of the worst, and
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Jesus, why we wasting
If it was a
time?
slow day, if it was a hot day, that narrowed the fields, kind of
Because
like
it's
curving
funny,
and test.
in the back they have this other like pre-audition, I guess,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So you got a few judges, and they were like, nope, nope,
Yeah.
and only the
got
few
it.
selected made it to the show where he was actually
Gotcha.
doing the judging and all that. But before we get anywhere else, because we started like somewhere in the middle of this thing.
I just want to say this. I started this by messing up completely.
We got
I'm
that.
still trying to break out of that embarrassment.
Yeah,
that's
no,
that's all
cool.
I'm thinking right now.
That's cool. I wish I was that guy, man. I'd take his paychecks.
But you know what? How did my mind just come? Because I know who Randy Jackson is, but how when I was looking through your bio, how did like my mind just
didn't
replace
connect
you with
you.
him for some reason, and Randy, he just didn't
The
exist
brain
anymore.
is lazy
Like, you're him.
sometimes, and that's probably what happened.
But
No, I want to start at the beginning. Where are you from? Where were you born? Tell me about a little
yeah,
life.
dude, man. I'm from Florida. I'm a Florida guy.
Tallahassee,
Winter
Orlando.
Haven, Florida. It's
Winter
right
Haven,
in the
okay.
center of the state.
Wow, okay.
I always say it's right in the middle of. So you got Orlando here, Tampa here, and it's right here, which is why I had I didn't know I was going to grow into the entertainment industry, but by doing that, both avenues were accessible to me. I always had a foot in the Orlando and Tampa, and that's done me well, I thought, when I first started doing things. And Orlando's more cinema and the amusement park, and if you want to kick off there, a lot of the younger performers and start heading toward Broadway. Not that you can't do that in Tampa, but Tampa's more of a live theater, live stand-up comedy town.
When do you start this thing about being expressing yourself as an artist, theater, comedy,
away,
whatever
man.
else?
Right away.
Right away? Were you,
12,
10, 15, 12? Oh,
12,
wow.
12. I did my
Okay.
first show at 12, and I was like, this is it.
What was the show? Was
It's
it
called Little Red Schoolhouse. It's a stage show.
Okay.
And already, my parents had to deal with me in insomnia. I was a notorious sleepwalker.
Okay.
Yeah, they find me down the street at neighbors' houses. It's a whole thing. They had to tie me to the bed. I kid you not. They gave up after a while, and it was just like instead of go to bed, it was go to your room. Yeah, because they knew I wasn't going to sleep. But I bring that up because at an early age, I discovered Johnny Carson late night. I would be watching TV in my room or in my brother's room, I just posted recently, like Red Fox. I would see these guys on Johnny Carson, and at a young age, and we all know this is nothing particularly exclusive to me. You guys know this. At a young age, if you have a antenna for it, you're catching things your peers aren't catching.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There's certain things about these comics and stuff. I begin to realize going to classes or being in detention or whatever, talking to other peers, that it's like, I'm one of a few who understand that joke Johnny Carson did last night. I just thought everybody did, but you find out that not only did so many of your peers not understand it, but even adults who are older than you, a decent amount of them didn't. It went over their heads too. And so I gravitated that. I was lucky to come up in a home with my mother, my father, and then my stepfather, that you were allowed to be who you were.
Were they musicians, artists in any way?
My mom
or
was
form or no?
extremely creative, whether she recognizes it or not, and it manifests itself in the way that she raised us. But she was an entrepreneur. She raised us with her beauty salon. That eventually she had a franchise. I grew up. Me and my oldest. I'm the youngest of 9, that I often say. And it's split in half how we grew up. My older siblings, we're all cool to a certain extent, but they grew up less fortunate than me. By the time I became a teenager, we were doing well.
Okay.
My mom was doing well, and
So they went through the rough times.
they
So
went
that
through the
kind
rough
of
times.
different.
They went through the rough patches. I was going to Prince concerts. I was like, I don't know what y'all watch Good Times. I'm watching
Bitching
the
and complaining about
Cosby
the
Show.
seats. I can see you
I'm
bitching and complaining.
established.
How come we're not on the front, Mom?
right. Yeah, no, I just, it's one of those things, again, innocently, I wouldn't know until my brothers brought it up. Like my first concert was Prince, like the pre-1999 Prince Controversy tour. He was just emerging, and your brothers, he went to a concert, and I'd be like, well, yeah. Well, it's like that you begin to notice that separation, that there's things they didn't do that I was a teenager, I was allowed to do, but it wasn't a forbidden rule or thing as much as it was an economic choice. Yeah. And but so I was allowed to make those decisions, and I decided at an early age, like, this is it for me.
So theater was your first love, per se?
Theater and comedy started it out. And then I
know you sing, and you also play the piano.
I've
play all the instruments.
done a variety of things,
Okay.
I just have. Did them around the house, would do them at school, and the next thing you know, I've always been painting. I've always been,
Very creative.
At the piano in the house. We had a piano in the house most of my life.
Did you teach piano before?
No. I play by ear.
You play by ear?
I can't sight read.
Okay.
If I sit down with sheet music, I can spend the time and figure it out. I know it that much, but I don't know it I'm not a sight reader. But I'm very good with my ear. You can play something and I can figure it out pretty quickly.
Cool.
But and then I got into singing groups. I in the early '90s. I did a lot of vocal arrangement for pop groups in Florida and Georgia, and while I was still doing comedy became huge. I called myself a New York comedian because that's where I made my bones.
Okay. How old were you when you hit New York?
2021.
Okay. All right.
And laugh one out at the Apollo.
That has to be an incredible experience,
nuts. I mean,
give me some names.
At this point,
who do you deal with? Who are you friends with? Who were
the comedians I worked with at the time?
Because you know how it is.
Yeah,
there's certain decades where like these were the comedians who were there most of the time. Were you buddies, friends?
What is that?
Laugh Tuesdays was the Apollo's professional club.
Okay.
At the time.
And that has to do with Rafa, what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Because I did just kind of cut him off for a second. Sorry about that.
No, it's good. At the time they launched a professional club at the Apollo, New York called Laugh Tuesdays.
Okay.
And so the story with that, and I'll get to the names, but the story with me was I had been going to Boston Comedy Club. I had won their open mic like 4 weeks in a row. The first night I did it, by the way, Ray Romano was the emerging comedian who was hosting. I always remember that. He was a very nice guy. But I won that. Then they wouldn't let me compete anymore, but they didn't make me a regular. And Joe Bertram out of nowhere.
You were too good they didn't let you want to compete.
I don't know.
Okay.
Joe Bertram, I still don't know to this day. This is way before cell phones. Got my number. I don't know how he got it. Called me and left a message saying, we want you to audition at the Apollo for Laugh Tuesdays. I must have played that recording 100 times that day.
You couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I was just like, at the whole, what? And I went, the thing was you would go Tuesday in the morning. They had auditions. I arranged to go do it. I changed my mind. I woke up. It's one of 3 times in my career. One with Laugh Tuesdays, one with the huge stage show, and another one was Idol, where I woke up the day of the big day. I don't know if it's stress induced, sick as a dog. I woke up the day to go to Laugh Tuesday audition. Man, I had the flu. It was cold and sleety and nasty, raining in New York, and I decided in all those 3 cases. I'm going. And I went, and I lived in Staten Island at the time. So I had to, run down Highland Boulevard. I lived in a killer spot. I shared a house with 2 other Staten Island Advance reporters. But I ran down, catch the 103, go to the ferry, wait on the ferry, get across the Battery Park, get on the one, go down to 14th Street, transfer, all of that. And get up there, and my dumb Florida ass thought I was going to be like, like you see in the movies. I'll go up to Apollo Theater. Doom. Let me in. I'm here for the audition. No, I get about 3 blocks away. There's lines.
They're going around.
Lines. But I met one of my closest friends in that line, man.
Oh, that's cool.
Dexter Stallworth. He's still up there, involved in the industry somehow.
Okay.
But anyway, I made it through the line. You get to the green room, and you're getting ready to go on the Apollo stage, dude.
Terrifying. I'll be terrified.
Yeah, all of that. And you don't realize until you go out there how steep it is. It's very steep. The audience is like looking down on you. And that's the thing.
You feel them on top of you pretty much.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Daytime, I thought it was going to be like 3 or 4 producers out there. No, they had a live audience you audition in front of.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because they wanted a real reaction.
I kind of like that better, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. And I went out and I did some time, man. I was getting laughs, and then I just got in the zone and I don't mean in the zone like high performance. I mean in the sense that I was just going.
Okay.
And I started going off, and I could have sworn I heard some boos. And it turns out I did. And Joe Bertram was waving me over, and I thought he was waving me off the stage. But I go down the little stairway, and he goes, "They were booing because you quit. They wanted more." He was like, they really wanted more. And the policy, as he explained to me on the phone, was if they liked you on the audition, they put you on the next Tuesday. I just finished that audition, and Joe was like, "Can you go on tonight?" And I was like, and I had a nighttime job working overnight at Kmart as a stock guy. And I was like,
and you're not feeling good either.
yeah, but like most artists, I said, yes.
Yes. Okay. No, but that shows you what you can lose if you don't go that far.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. And I went on that night, man. I remember, God, time flies, man. There was a famous PBS. This is so funny, man, that I remember this. There was a PBS public service announcement commercial with Reverend Jesse Jackson doing a promo for hip hop. And that's what I opened with, was talking about. See, everybody knew it at the time. No one knows it now. But I talked about Jesse doing that, and then I did this whole thing where Jesse all of a sudden became this rapper, and I was rapping as Jesse. Yeah. You know, Kool Moe Dee at the time had a huge hit out called "I Go to Work." Remember that song?
Yeah.
I did it. Jesse's turn on it, you know, just like, "I go to work," you know, where he just Jesse trails off, and it just becomes nuts, subconscious, and and all of this kind of stuff. But I did that night, got a partial standing ovation at the Apollo, dude. I couldn't even think straight after that. And you know, you snap your finger, blink your eye, the next, you know, X amount of months to a year, I'm there on a regular basis every Tuesday with guys like Bill Bellamy, Angelo Lozada, who we lost a couple of years ago, who was the warm-up for The Daily Show, Chris Rock, David Spade, Tracy Morgan. I mean, a lot of those guys.
So you're buddies with them. And they're probably very young at that.
I was
that was like 30 years ago, right?
I was a baby among babies. They were pretty young, like late 20s. I was 21.
Okay.
And they used to joke. I remember at the time, a lot of the guys would joke about it, the fact that I was so young. I talked about this on Morgan's podcast, but my mentor, who was Steve LaRae, and Chappelle's mentor, Charlie Barnett, they were rivals. Mm-hmm. And it's just like they were like the tree. I call it trees. They were the trees of comedy, especially black comedy in New York. You were in one of those two trees.
Okay.
And Steve LaRae, man, both of those guys, Steve LaRae and Charlie Barnett, are some of the baddest comedians people never got to really know. Charlie did a couple of films like DC Cab with Mr. T and all, and he will be on Miami Vice. And there's some footage of him doing street shows in the park. But when I tell you, I tell the world, man, I 10 years ago, I worked with Anthony Chisholm, a legendary Broadway actor. Mm-hmm. And that was when he made me start embracing and recognizing what's great about my career. Because I used to be kind of apologetic about just because I didn't blow up. And I found out that, like, if you're still doing it at my age, mm-hmm. and you trace it back to me starting, I'm talking back to 1982 as a 12-year-old, that I'm a part of only less than 2% of people who started with me.
Yeah, because a lot of people quit right away.
Right.
Stuff like
That's crazy when you consider mm-hmm. only a fraction of that 2% are like names, like big names. But it's just amazing, man. I've learned that I've done things that people, you can bring up, say, Chris Rock or Martin Lawrence. That's another name of that time. Those guys, man, they've done things and blown up in ways I haven't, but I've done things they haven't done. I've been on the West End, which is London's Broadway. I've traveled the world. I've headlined in Dublin, and I've done some of these crazy things. And it took Anthony Chisholm, working with him,
to really realize,
to get me to embrace that, man. It's like, because he was that guy of his group. Anthony Chisholm, I explain it to you, there's a group of about 7 famous black actors. He's the least famous, but dude, if you've ever seen, and may he rest in peace now, we lost him a couple of years ago, but if you ever saw Anthony Chisholm on stage, he was second to none. But there's a group of friends: Samuel Jackson, Morgan Freeman, Delroy Lindo, Angela Bassett, Lawrence Fishburne. See if I'm leaving anybody out, but Anthony Chisholm. They were all like really close. Courtney B. Vance, Angela Bassett's husband. Anthony Chisholm was the least famous of that group, but that entire group will tell you that he was second to none of them as a performer. And I was fortunate enough that this theater company cast him in Radio Golf, in the role that he originated on Broadway. They got him to do a reprieve of it, and the show that I was cast in. And I got to know him and meet him, and he became like my big brother, man. What a mind, what a talent, what a force of nature, and just cool and wise, man. Chisholm was something, man. He was in his late 70s and still chasing skirts and still cool dude, the coolest dude you would in the room. Anytime there was anybody in the room, could hear him now. Ranney, come here a minute, man. Let me talk to you. Wow. He's just so cool. Brilliant actor. When we did the show, Radio Golf is played by August Wilson, which I'm a proud Wilsonian. Do all the August Wilson work. And he originated the role of Old Joe, who comes and tell these stories about being a black Vietnam veteran and when he came back and the racism that he faced. But when he would tell the story on stage, man, you felt like you were like out of space. I mean, this dude would go into this character and you'd be like, are we time traveling? Did he slip some acid in my drink? Like, he was just that good. And I'm pretty focused as an actor, but I'd be on stage with him trying to it was like, God damn, he's good.
Also, as an actor, you get to trying to get the techniques, and then how you look at it completely different when someone's performing in front of you, and you get to analyze or try to analyze and break it down on how they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, it's great all these years. Like I said, I'm 56. I'm a proud 56. I feel like a baby at 56, and over the years, you work with so many actors, and they have different techniques, different schools of thought. I'm method, I'm Kutaskian, and I'm viewpoints, and you're getting all of that. And I came in a program where I went to junior college. We had to learn all of them. You had to learn all of them.
All the different styles.
You had to learn all of them, man. I tell you, I feel like my entire life's journey has been fortunate of me running into a bunch of Yodas. And I was at this junior college, and we had a master teacher, man. He was something. He had all his humanities and arts in his head, and riding to the grocery store with him was a lesson. And when he directed most of the shows we did, and he would introduce you every rehearsal to a whole different way of a technique and looking at he'll show you things and break things down to you. So a lot of times when I've performed in shows by this point all over the globe, and when you're in a process, I get that, that people will say, oh, you can go this way and go. And it's like, well, that's how we were trained. There's no one lane to get to where you're going. Like, I just did Whining Boy in The Piano Lesson, which is another August Wilson play. This is my second time playing that role. Well, some actors, when they play a role the second time, they just do a repeat. Anybody who knows me and they saw the way I did Whining, it ain't anything close to the way I did them the first time.
You had to reinvent the whole character.
Reinvented the whole character. It's just like, because I'm with a whole different group now.
Yeah.
But also, it would have been boring for you, I can only assume, do the same
boring,
thing.
But it's just, it's not as
It wouldn't be as
fresh.
challenging
It's
or
fresh. It would be like, so me and you say like, you on the drums and I'm on the piano, and then all of a sudden you say, okay, Angela, take he takes the drums. He's got a different rhythm now. You know, so I'm going to play exactly the way I was playing with you. No.
So, so you're also known as the Illuminatus. Is that, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Is
Well,
that
now,
from acting?
now I don't know if you know the tradition. The tradition in comedy, you're not supposed to take your own nickname. Someone's supposed to give it to you.
Okay.
And all of mine have been given to me. The Illuminatus, oh man, I didn't expect to go there today. But
Who came up with that?
Illuminatus was given to me by a friend who I was really close to, a slam poet, one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. We lost him to lupus in 2004. Eyes Ofrica. I was at the Tampa Improv. And he was hanging out with me, and the MC was going up to introduce me, and that's what he told them to say. And I was like, dude, why you told him to call me the Illuminatus? And Eyes, and this brother was younger than me, but he seemed older than me. He had a very black exploitation 70s black type of persona with him. Even though, he died when he was 27. He was a young guy, but he just seemed like from a different era.
Okay.
And I said, why'd you tell him to call me the Illuminatus? Eyes? He said, because you is.
That's the way he looked at you. I get it. I completely get it. Yeah, it makes sense.
That was
to me.
Eyes, man. Yeah, it was just, I always remember that like it was yesterday. Why you tell him to call me the Illuminatus? Because you is. Okay.
Oh man.
Yeah, and then,
Because you is, because I was wondering, like, why? Okay.
and we brought up Idol earlier. Mark Daniel, I hope he sees this, who's so huge in the Disney parks. He's just this guy who goes around. He does everything at Disney. If you've ever been in the parks, you've seen him. Tall brother, about 6'3", 6'4", very talented. Mark started calling me Black Yoda.
Black Yoda.
He's also a stand-up comedian in addition to that. And then an actor friend started Mr. Funny Black Man, another one of my nicknames.
Yeah, I seen that one too. Yeah.
Mr. Funny Black Man. And then a couple of years ago, Suede started Chocolate Gandalf. You remember Suede?
Oh, I know. So.
Suede started that.
Chocolate Gandalf. I like that one.
Yeah, Suede started. That's only been since I've been in Lubbock. Yeah. So those of you who don't know, I came to Lubbock so my wife could pursue her PhD, which she has by now, over at Texas Tech.
Nice.
How long you been
And
here?
I've been here, dude. It's crazy. 10 years. I had planned to come here and let her get her PhD, me come and go, and not do anything else. And it was 2015. I happened to walk. You guys used to have a spot called at Laugh Up City. Used to have a spot at a place called the Library, and it was behind that little cul-de-sac area behind
Backstage.
No, behind
called Backstage?
Lantern. No.
Oh, this was the other.
No,
Okay.
I remember Backstage too. This was behind Lantern Tavern. One of those spaces back there had a club, and I went there. And then next to Backstage, you used to have a place at the Hookah Lounge.
Yes.
They used to have an open mic there. And I just decided I wasn't planning to say anything. I was coming as an audience member.
Yeah.
And I can't remember his name, this guy with glasses, but he and Caleb.
John Lewis, probably.
No, it wasn't John Lewis. It was before, pre-John Lewis. But it was, I remember John Lewis Sims. But it was, I could see the guy, but it was him and Caleb Davis. Started talking to me, and then just a little bit through conversation, you know. I was trying to stay incognito.
I love that.
But I'm an honest guy. You ask me a question, I'm going to answer you. And at one point during the conversation, Caleb asked, he's like, "Are you a comedian?" I said, "Yeah." You know, and then he was like, "Why don't you go up?" And I didn't go up that night. And then I came to see them. They used to also, Wes used to own a place called the Tiki Lounge.
Correct.
Where they had the first couple of Lubbock Laugh-Offs. I went to see the Lubbock Laugh-Off when it was there. And that's when Caleb introduced me to Wes and a couple of the others. And they convinced me to, they used to have a place called the Recovery Room.
Yeah, the Rico room. Yeah,
Rico room was the first place I performed in Lubbock.
Wow.
And then
I got to play in that area.
Yeah.
That,
Nice.
That was a long time ago.
I did, and then I would come and go. I was still going and doing shows, whether it be in St. Pete or Portland or blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I came through one time and I got a reach out from JJ. And he asked me to headline at Backstage. That's the first time I headlined in Lubbock, was at Backstage when you bring up back. I love that room.
Yeah, me too. The stage was kind of high. It was nice size.
It's great. It had that old school rock and roll, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just like, yeah, Black Sabbath was in here.
Yeah.
That
was awesome.
It just
Is that what Jake's is now, or
no, it's
the Black Sheep.
Black Sheep.
okay.
It's over by where Louis, the piano lounge, used to be.
okay?
It's right next to that, but back in that back area.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to ask about too is I seen that you wrote. It said a fictional dramatic series called The Comedy Club.
Yeah.
What is that? Because when I seen that stood out to me. So I was like, yeah, that sounds cool.
Well, I've done several projects that I've pitched out and done decent in screenwriting competitions. Maybe one to get picked up. And if anybody knows anything about these things, it's a crapshoot. It's sometimes, and it's about connecting with the right people. During COVID, I had a national reading of that one.
Okay.
And Maestro is another one of many that I have. But the Comedy Club in particular, that's one of my babies. The series is about, it's a fictional history drama. It's
Okay.
a drama, not a comedy.
No, history drama.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's about a group of, it's a fictitious group of comedians who changed the world of entertainment and changed the world through their comedy.
In the 80s?
In the it goes from 89 to 89 to 99.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. And everything up into that bit. And it's influenced by the comedians of that time.
Nice.
Everyone from Bill Hicks to more mainstream, like Don Herrera and all those guys who changed the scene. I mean, they absolutely changed the scene. That's one time where right now, because we're a hyper-capitalistic country, and I'm not trying to put judgment on that, that's just a fact. But we're such an empire. We have an impact on everything from that perspective. But as an artistic vehicle, I believe the comedians of the mid 80s to 2000 changed the face of comedy globally. I really believe that American comedians did that.
I believe it has to do a lot also with technology, right? I mean,
technology,
TV and now
technology. There's so many avenues now, but at that time, at that juncture, with what was going on with cable television, and combined with what had happened, which was a layover from the '60s,
the HBO specials, and all that kind of stuff,
groundwork laid by the Lenny Bruces, the Richard Pryors, and all of that. But it came at a perfect storm. That it collided with the technology in the 80s of getting cable and most people getting cable television, and comedy being an economic venture. Think about it. If you say, hey, produce something, and you say, oh, I don't have as much money to do a Broadway musical or do a film, it's just a mic and a guy. That's pretty inexpensive. So that became, you're talking about the first golden rush of comedy before it happened the second and third time, happened in the late 80s with cable, where we were everywhere.
And also, I believe also the audience was a little more ready, after Playboy magazine. There was, people were not as worried about bad language, and they're a lot more open. They were a lot more open-minded to that kind of stuff. I guess it was like a perfect storm with
There's a little bit of that. I think it also
talent, all the media, I guess, and people being ready for it.
Ready for it a bit, but also not so ready. I'm in the sense, and what I mean by that is, I think it happened before they realized it. You know what I mean?
Well, the comedians always been pushing the boundaries no matter what. You were semi-ready for say.
I mean, as a business, though. Yeah, I get you. But I mean, as a business, I think before people could realize it, like I'm of that age. I remember sitting in the office. I had a call back they were trying to do the video jockey thing in conjunction with VH1, early comedy channel. This is pre-Comedy Network.
Okay.
It was when it was the Comedy Channel. I was in the New York office with Julian Goldberg, who was the CEO of Comedy Channel.
Just the last name Goldberg. That tells you something. Jesus.
But he was over the Comedy Channel, and his office looked like a lesser version of this. Then you go into an intern's office now, and it looks like a CEO office from back then.
Yeah.
So we're more empirical as a nation, first of all, but second of all, the business is just so huge now. At the time, he was just all of a sudden over this network, but that didn't mean as much then, because cable was just so new. You know, as a household thing, it wasn't new to people. You know, my brother was a Nielsen person. You know, when they choose you to be a Nielsen rating person.
Okay.
It's another fortunate thing. So I'm an oddity for my age. I grew up with cable. Not everybody my age can say that. Now, people younger than me can say that, but I've had cable since I was 4 or 5 years old. So things like Fantastic Planet and all that weird French animation and stuff. I grew up seeing that stuff just piped in my house at a young age.
Okay.
You know, Orson Welles presents The Magicians from France and all that, all this crazy stuff. And I would just take it in, not knowing that I was learning things.
Yeah.
And so I say that to say that, but at the time, it was a rarity. Like I told you earlier, when we started doing better financially, we moved to the burbs. We were one of the few black families in this place called Imperial Lakes. Oh my God, that name. It got bougie all over it. In Mulberry, Florida. But even in that neighborhood that was considered, ooh, you're upper scale, we were one of the few families with cable. You know? I can remember friends would run over our house to see, you know, they're going to, MTV would announce their menu for the next hour. Remember those days? He said, we're going to be showing, it's going to be by Sting. We're going to show this. We're going to be showing, you know, the Thompson Twins and Thriller by Michael Jackson. And all your friends will call. You call, you'd call all your friends. They're going to be showing Thriller, you know. Yeah. And so all the friends would descend over that because we had cable.
Yeah.
Everybody would come over to our house, you know, like everybody, and some people looking through the window like, oh my God, you know. But now it's like, everybody's got that on their phone now, you know.
No big deal.
Yeah, but that connects to what I was saying earlier. That's how big of an empire we are. Entertainment that was rare back then is a normal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, people can pull up, you know, what Michael Jackson was doing in his kitchen. It's like, you know, like, you haven't seen the footage of Michael Jackson dancing in his kitchen? Like, I haven't seen it, bro. Here it is. You know, but when you say that in the 80s, with the infancy of the industry becoming so big and us, what we do being economical, it became, you know, a go-to. So Arts and Entertainment Channel, Bravo in the early days, you know, just like ESPN early days. If anybody watch ESPN in its early days, they were showing some bullshit. You know what I mean? It's like guys skiing
they
with
were trying their best. They were trying their best, pretty much.
You're like, what?
Wait, tell me, what was it?
All it would do would be like 3 o'clock in the morning, like diving competition. You know, it's just like two guys with a snorkel racing to a sandwich or whatever. They just would show anything.
No, and there was moments where they were silent. They didn't know what to say anymore.
They didn't know what to do. So, you know, so you say Arts and Entertainment Channel, Bravo, Entertainment Network. In their early days, it was just like, that's an easy go-to. We'll do tonight, Caroline's at the Seaport, you know, and then the next half hour, live from the Improv. Because it was comedians and it was just cheap. All we needed was a mic.
Yeah.
But by having that and being the economical art form, it gave us all these venues, and then comedy had its first huge blow up.
Gotcha.
It was the first time we were part of the generation that was the first time comedy, I love to say it this way, but it's just the fact, was taken seriously.
Yeah.
You know, when you go back pre our generation of Eddie Murphy and all of them, comedians, they were the fringe.
I heard
they were not center stage.
No, you were a fill in between acts, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. Between the strippers, they put a comedian here and there.
Yeah, every once in a while you had a Jerry Lewis that would be the main focus of a film.
Yeah.
But now, comedians, that's what all Hollywood wants.
Well, I
Kevin
remember,
Hart, all the comedians, that's who they want.
to me, comedy, when I first started seeing it was like, remember the Rat Pack?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was still, TV was still in black and white and stuff like that.
Yeah. Don Rickles.
Oh, exactly. Don
Yeah.
Rickles, Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah.
And again, you see them dancing, you see them doing comedy as they singing, and that was like, wow, from Las Vegas or whatever, the Rat Pack, and that was the most incredible thing. And there was the only comedians that we pretty much known back in those
days, man. I was a teenager, and we would watch Sanford and Son, and you watch the series. It's a television series.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, HBO, like I said, I had cable at a young age. They showed it was called Red Fox and a Brown Plain Rapper. That was the name of the concert. They showed of Red Fox. I was like, I still today get goosebumps of how that made me feel. I can remember everything about that. And then when I was in 11th grade, a couple of years later, I was in detention, and I started the concert, and I slipped and said some cussing words. And Mr. Graham, who was the counselor at the time, said, "That's okay." And I did the entire concert for detention. That was really kind of like my first live comedy show. I did the Red Fox comedy special in a blind. I did it for word. I knew it like that. I even did his intro. Got to get the old touch. I had a pencil and used that as my cigarette. And would do like him.
You gotta improvise
and punctuate the end of the lines like he did. I would use my pencil. Yeah.
Okay.
I met a hooker at the bar. She said, "What time?" I said, "What time you gotta be home, baby?" She said, "How much money you got?" I said, $10,000. She said, "Labor Day." And I do the little pencil, and I was going over to a place called Bouncers. And there's a whole different time.
New York, I assume?
No, this is in Orlando.
Oh, in Orlando. Okay.
And it was a different time. You could get in places like that, and they would let you go up even though they knew you were too young to even be in the bar. But if you behaved, they would let you perform and then get out of there. And that's where I met Steve Luray. Steve Luray was coming through as a headlining comedian. He saw me and he said, "You're a New York comedian." I said, "I'm from Florida." He said, "I wasn't asking." He said, "Your timing."
Oh, okay.
He said, you need to move up to New York. Okay. And I was stuck in my head. And then when I got the opportunity, I took it and moved up there. It was about a year later, but and I would meet him, and my first comedy tour, I was opening for him. Laugh One Out, send us on the road.
Yeah, so you jumped right away.
Not right away. Like I went to New York. I worked for 6 months.
Tour already.
I worked for 6 months at Kmart. Didn't go anywhere near a mic. My first 6 months.
Okay.
And then on my 21st birthday is I did a couple before that, but the 21st birthday was the first night I won something, and then and then it was about a couple of months of doing it at Laugh Tuesdays for a while. They just thought I was their guy, They told me, I can remember Steve Lawrence, if he's out there still somewhere, one of the producers, I can remember coming off on stage one night and he said, "You're going to make us rich." And I was just like, me? I was nothing but eyes and teeth at the time, skinny kid. And then they put me on a tour with Steve Luray, and first night opening for him in Greenbelt, Maryland at the Comedy Connection. I came off stage and he's had that cigarette. This one we were all still allowed to smoke in clubs. And he had that cigarette and he said, "You's a funny motherfucker." And he said, "I'm gonna do something for you." He said, "Tomorrow I'm gonna open for you." And I was like, Steve, it took all I had to give you those 20 minutes tonight to open for you. He said, you can get up 25 more and close tomorrow because I'm opening for you. And I was like, I was up all night.
Right.
That's the first night. The next night when I did headline, I stretched. I got to 45, but I stretched like a motherfucker. It was the first time I did a classic bit of mine back then. It was called, I used to do the Black Jetsons.
Black what?
Jetsons.
Jetsons.
I used to do a version of the
cartoon show?
Jetsons,
Yeah.
but that like they were black. I was started off. Yeah, that was my kind
I
of.
love this
militant
thing because that has
I
to be
started
fun.
off going, yeah, why wouldn't we have black Jetsons? We were the first on Earth. We should be the first in space. And then I go into, meet Bubba Jackson, his wife Chatty, and then she had attitude and, daughter Lakeisha.
Oh my god, that's
Crackpot, the mutt, and they all had these characters, and I'd go into the series, and it was nuts, man. But
sounds like a lot of fun.
yeah, but I stretch, and that's been most of my career has been from people seeing me. I can't talk for anybody else. Like, I've never been a business guy.
I can't imagine how many people you have touched after so many years of performance.
And
I can't
vice
really
versa.
imagine.
Vice versa, man. I can't count it the other way either. But my career's always been like early last year, I did the one-man show at Ensemble Theater in Cincinnati called How I Learned What I Learned, where I play August Wilson.
How long is it?
It's an hour and 55 minutes. No intermission.
Bro. Just imagine that.
No
Jesus
intermission
Christ.
on stage.
What is it called again?
How I Learned What I Learned.
Okay.
And I had a brilliant director, Tori Wiggins, and we had a very short amount of time. While we were at a cross town at Cincinnati Shakespeare Company. We were already opening a show as husband and wife in the Amen Corner, that play. And then in the daytime, she's directing me in How I Learned What I Learned. So we're both doing double duty. And we only had 3 weeks in a show that probably you should have 6 or 7. And we got it up, and it was a crazy experience. People loved that show. But I bring it up to say that one of the nights, a friend of mine who I knew from Idol, she was one of the people who would precast.
Okay.
She came to see the show. She didn't tell me she brought this agent with her. And we went out to eat that night after the show, and we sat down. We could barely sit down. He was just like, she tells me you don't have an agent. And I was like, I haven't worked with an agent in years, probably 2 decades. He's like, I think you got one now. And I signed with him, but even with that agency, and the times I've had them, my work, 99%, I can't talk to young performers about agents. My journey has been people see me and I get work.
Okay.
As an actor, as a comedian, I've always been a live guy. It's like when someone tells me someone's interested in me, I always say, get them in the room. I'll be performing, blah, 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 get them in the room. It's like, oh, won't you come do an audition? I'll come and do an audition. But I'm telling you, get them in the room.
Not the same. Yeah. I get
For
it.
me, that's been my story, man. The last, I have actor friends, on New York and Broadway now. I've been doing this for a while, so I got friends. I mean, some of them are famous and in the films and blah blah blah, and some of them have those stories, like agent, blah. You see on E Entertainment or whatever. My agent sent me that. Most of my stories are so and so saw me. I have a buddy who Chuck Burks in New York, and he does great with agents. I got other friends, Kevin Craig West, if you're watching, my brother. He gets sent out, and he does great. He's in, if you look up that name, he's in probably every other film. That's not been my experience. My experience has been, when people ask me, like right now, if you were to ask me the story behind every role I've played on stage in the last 10 to 15 years, it's, well, so-and-so saw me
doing something else.
yeah, man, that's been it. And the same thing as a comedian. It's like, I haven't been channeled and centered in comedy for a minute, and I'm about to be this year.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just,
That's interesting.
it's about to take center stage.
I love that.
Yeah. But for me to do that, that's what it's going to take. It's like, I'm going to have to go to some, call, play, place. I have a resume where I could at least do that and say, I need you to see me. I'll come in and do a guest spot. And I'll come in. And that's why, and you know this about me, man. With young comics, when they talk to me about it, I'm not big on giving advice, but I will give my opinion. And I think those are two different things. And
I can see that.
yeah. And I will tell them, don't go into these clubs until you're ready. And then they'll say, blah, blah, blah. And I said, listen, you see my resume, I don't even go into the clubs until I'm ready. You know, people will be like, well, how come you're not at so-and-so guy? Because I'm not ready. And they go, no, but you're so good at it. You know, that's you talking. I know when I'm ready. And that's why you don't see me knocking on the door, bothering the franchise clubs. You don't see me bothering them right now because my rhythm's not right. I got to get back in rhythm. I know I can walk up to a mic and be funny. That's what comedians are supposed to do. Okay. But am I rainy ready? No. So I have to get back. There's usually 2 weekends of consistently doing it, not just popping in. 2 weekends of consistently doing quality time. My rhythm begins. You know, it's like I'm a big sports fan. It's like a great point guard shooting. I just get into a rhythm. Yeah, okay. Gotcha. This is me now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you guys know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same with you, man. You know it. You know, I look like a fool. And that's why I don't understand even, I say opinion and advice. I don't understand. I don't care how long you've been doing it. Some of the advice I hear older comedians give to young comedians, and I go, but you're not that guy. I can't tell him how to do his comedy. That's crazy.
No. Yeah,
I point out certain things about you handling the mic, you know, your professional demeanor, that stuff. But when you start really talking about your content, who am I? What the hell I got to say?
That's cool. I like that you're saying that. Yeah.
What the, you know? But now if you ask me my opinion, I'm going to give you, I had a comedian here asking me about their time. And I was just like, I gave him an opinion and he got upset. And I was like, dude, it's just my opinion. And I mean this from the heart. My opinion is just my opinion. It shouldn't have an impact on you doing what you need to do. Because at the end of the day, we're pitchers without a baseball team. You got to go up to that mound, dude. It's you, not me. Yeah. We all got to go. At one point, we got to go to the mic. It's us and nobody else.
Yeah.
But what am I doing telling you how to do that? That doesn't even make sense.
It's funny because I heard I heard him say exactly that, but on the shorter version. And just when I was ready to get enough courage to ask him for his opinion. So I just went, never mind, I just walked the other way. That was it. Because I admire him so much, you know what I'm saying? That I was ready, and then got enough courage. He was talking about just that. I'm like, oh, fuck. So I didn't even try to ask for his opinion.
No, man, I love this area. I didn't know anything about Lubbock. I tell people everywhere I go, it's like, man, these guys are so brave because I know what it's like, how tough it is when you have a franchise club to have an impact on your career. So to come to an area where there's no franchise club, and that's huge. To not have any in the region, not just the city.
And they're building it from the ground up, to tell you the truth. And you've seen it grow.
That's tough. Because you don't have an escalator and you're trying to get upstairs, you know? And so to watch people come together, it's just one of those things. Negativity in any situation is always the minority. And so when people come in, it's like, well, this is problems. It's like, well, yeah, no, you know, I've been doing this for a while. Do I see problems? Yeah. But what I see most of the time is a group of comics coming together saying, you're not stopping us, man. We're coming to the mic. We're working out, and we're gonna work this out. And this is how I do comedy. These are my opinions on politics. This is this problem I have with baby mamas. whatever. And you just sit there and go, man, they're coming, you know. And you know, sometimes there's different entertainers or whatever who think they know, and if they're not in it, then it's just like, well, shut up. And then the other thing is certain audience members, you know, they get offended. People get offended by ambition. You ever see that happen? People show up in the room and they're offended that this man right here has decided to have ambition and go up to the mic and do something. That offends them.
Yeah. And people that are just there for people that are just there as an audience, you know what I mean? Because that's where you get the drunk hecklers sometimes too, because they think they're funny and they're drunk, and then in their mind they're like, why ain't I up there? You know, that's what they're thinking to themselves. But you don't have the damn courage. You don't have the balls to get up there. So you're just going to try to be funny from your seat and be a dickhead. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and bring you down.
Yeah.
And sit back and go, oh, that wasn't funny. You know, I taught stand-up for 10 years.
Nice.
And,
how do you know that?
And in Tampa. And even with that, I had to change my thinking. Wendy Lee, love you, Wendy, who used to run the Strass Center, which is the Tampa answer to Kennedy Center and New York's Lincoln Center. It's a huge performing arts center where all kind of stuff happens. But when they started educational, when she called and asked me to, I just come back from London, and she asked me to teach a stand-up comedy class. And my response was, you can't teach comedy. And I went and thought about it, and I was like, people have been, as I do with anything, analyze. I was like, people have been saying that for years. Is that true? And then I thought about it, I was like, well, you can't teach funny. You can't teach humor. But to say you can't teach comedy, I think is an arrogant thing that's built up from a very defensive part of comedians as a collective, that we've been the gutter religion for so long that we have to build ourselves up and say we're doing something that's not quantifiable. They're teaching quantum physics at MIT. They can teach stand-up comedy. Get off your high horse.
That's way more complicated.
We can teach the art form. Now, I can't teach you rhythm, delivery, you know what I mean? So those traits of comedy, I get. That's the inspiration for people saying you can't teach comedy. But to say you can't teach an art form, it's pretty arrogant, So I had to correct myself, and I accepted the duty and built this class. Man, I took the time to build it. I taught out of Franklin Ajayi's Comic Insights. I used that as a recipe and had fun, man. I learned more about comedy by teaching it for 10 years. And but one of the things I constantly hit on my comics about was, I can't write for you, dude. They found me a bit cryptic in certain replies to their questions, but I'm not here to write for you.
There's also writers and performers. Also, now that you mentioned writing,
yeah,
and also you probably know there's a lot of the good comedians out there, especially in TV. They have a team of writers.
Oh, well, yeah, sometimes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Especially monologue is like who do talk shows and stuff like that. But just as a pure stand-up comic, if you're going to go out there and do it and develop the material and all that kind of stuff, it's like I can help you understand the art form and speed up certain processes for you. There's certain things as a technique. I've said to certain comics here, hey man, when you go up on stage, you left the mic in front of you. It's subconsciously obnoxious. Move it out of the way. Or, hey dude, you keep moving out when you're talking. We're losing some of your words. You think that the audience didn't think that was funny. No, they just didn't hear it. And just little things like that. But when you start getting into content, I don't mess with comedians, man. I don't mess with artists about and so I can seem a bit evasive and cryptic, but that's why I do that. When comedians ask me, what do you think about this line? I'm not going to be the comedian come in and go, you should say it this way. You'll never hear that from me.
You see, sometimes we, especially in the Rico Room, we have a couple of those workshops or whatever. There's a bunch of comedians trying to talk about comedy and try to help each other out, and it didn't. I thought I was able to help out and put in my 2 cents here and there to a couple of the comedians, but when it came to me, I just couldn't take anything. First of all, because to me it's kind of cheating. It's not my stuff. I didn't come up with that, so I'm already like rejecting it. Yeah. And then second, that's not how I express myself. That's not how I think, and that's not my style.
Right. You know what I call it? Replacing digestive systems.
Explain that to me.
So you say, I'm going to get me something to eat. And I go, here, take my digestive system.
Oh.
All of a sudden you start eating and going, this don't agree with me.
Yeah.
I go, because you have my digestive system.
I didn't look at it that way.
And when I start trying to tell you words to put in your content as a solo performer, which is what stand-up comedy is, that's why I say you, with pitchers without a baseball team, when you got to eventually walk up to the mound by yourself and face an audience, and I'm giving you my digestive system. And if it works for 2 seconds, it's not going to work for very long. After a while, you're going to go, yeah, this doesn't agree with me, and that's why I don't do it, man. This is one of those things. And so when I taught stand-up, I think some of the comments thought, man, and that's kind of where the word Yoda comes from, because they thought I was a bit cryptic, but it's like, no, I'm just not going to directly tell you what to say ever. That's not how I learned. I had great mentors. Steve Luray, I was telling you about. He would never do that with me.
I mean, you can
He will help you find.
Yeah, you can point people in the right direction, but they still need to be the ones walking in that direction.
Gotta. I had a young comic who's brilliant, and he left comedy and became a writer. He's written 2 novels. But I remember specifically him getting in a jam with a joke. And I've been doing this for a while. I had about 20 punchlines he could have used. But they were Rainey's punchlines to his setup, not his punchlines to his setup. And once he found it, it was like, dude, I would have never come up with that. And I'm pretty creative.
Yeah.
Don't you hate it when that happens, when you see a comedian saying something that you're like, how come I didn't think of that? That's fucking, oh my God.
I love it, man. No, that's one of my favorite things, is to see a comic and you go, oh, yeah. Oh, I thought you were going that way. You know, I love, man. I'm such a fan of comedy too. I love, I can go, and you know, I've done that. I'll come in the room and just watch. I like to sit in the back of the room and watch the event, because to me, that's the punchline. The social event. It's like, that's the funniest thing about stand-up comedy, is watching the room.
Yeah.
Watching people and their different, you know, what the fuck, and their psychosis coming into the room that they bring from their days. And, you know, and this guy, he's decided no one's going to make him laugh. And if they try, he's going to punch him in the mouth.
Yeah.
You know? And this guy, he's just like, I don't know what's going on with him. He must have just lost $1 million. And this lady, you know, who seems, she's ready to laugh at anything. And whatever's going on with people and the different dynamics, and you watch things happen. You watch people make dates and make friends and make enemies. And you know, you were there. Were you there tonight, the Mexican biker gang?
I was there. You even mentioned me. I felt so good because Rafa was there. I'm like, yeah.
Had a Mexican biker gang at the Lantern Tavern start to approach the stage, and the leader of the gang said to me, "We're gonna put some hands on you." And I was like, is he a preacher? He's like, brother, I'm Pentecostal. You don't need to put hands on me. I know Jesus.
He's got the mic stand ready to go at the same time.
He's like, no, we're going to put the hands on you because you. And all I did was, when you were there that night, I was light with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All I did was talk about the fact that they talked through all the comedians. And I made 1 or 2 smart aleck. I didn't even go for them. You know what I mean? Like, I could hard. And they got really pissed, man. But I think it comes from what I was saying to my man earlier. I think that they had, you know, he and his group were in the corner doing their thing, and he had a chip on his shoulder, like, how dare these guys have the ambition to want something? There's people who actually, you can see it in their DNA, that pisses them off. Yeah. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you reach for something?
Yep. So we're getting towards the end. I have one more question that I want to ask, but right now, before I ask, I have one more thing, and I want to see if Rafa has one more thing too. But
no problem.
Just tell the viewers how to find you. Anything else you want to say to the world, man?
Oh, cool, man. It's ranney.com. When ITSRANNEY.com. That's my website. I've had it for years. If you go to the front page, it also has links to other things with me as a writer, and my Instagram, when I am, you know, I'm very random about all those things. You heard me say earlier, I'm not a big business guy. I do everything out of impulsivity. So, you know, there's no rhyme or reason to the way I struck. There's a lot of comedians and artists, you go to their Instagram and it's like, oh, he mostly shows clips. Oh, I just put whatever the hell I feel. Yeah, right. Yeah. That's just me. I've learned to say that now, because people give me feedback and go, your Instagram don't make sense. I was like, it does to me. When I was posting whatever I posted. But yeah, that's how you can find me. It's ranney.com, Instagram, Chocolate Gandalf, Facebook, Chocolate Gandalf. And then, you know, you can go to my itsranney.com, and anything else you click on there and find. And I appreciate anytime you drop in. And if you want to have a conversation, as you can see, I can gab for a minute. Yeah.
Nice. I can tell you, Ranney, I have performed in front of you, and there was a few times that I know was on point because I made you laugh.
I'm a big...
like several times in a row, and one of my bits, you were laughing one and again and again and again. I'm like, okay, I got it.
You know, one of my favorite roles in the last 10, 15 years was producer. and I found out I'm pretty damn good at it. And the very place where I taught, the Strass Center, a couple of things came together and it ended up in my lap where I ended up being a producer of this night called Stand Up Here. And when we did it, I would sit above the audience in this booth. And the comedians would tell me every night, just like, man, we felt like we were on point when we'd hear that goofy ass laugh coming out of the booth. But I'm genuine, man. If it's funny, I'm going to laugh. There's, we know there's some comics will sit up and be like, I'm going to show that I'm experienced and I'm hard. You got to get it. It's like, if it's funny, the shit's funny to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. But at the same time, when someone that has as much experience as you do and you make that person laugh and he's having a great time, you're like, yes. I got it.
Oh, man.
I'm doing good tonight. You know what I mean? So that felt very good.
You're a funny dude, man.
Now, I don't know, you're probably old enough. You're younger, a little younger than me, but about a year. I remember when I was a kid, when they had those records.
Yeah, yeah.
And you feel like you're going to do something dirty, like put it in there, and you're nervous as fuck. And put the needle in, and you're listening to this shit, and there was some shit you didn't understand, but the way it was said, it was so funny, too. Man.
Yeah,
it was incredible. That to me,
as a social construct or whatever, culturally, it was just so different because, and I'm sure there's generations before they'd be like, when you had to read a scroll. But I'm just, I'm just saying, there's something about it had to be a great album because you put it on, you couldn't mess with it.
Yeah.
You had to put it on and listen to it. And some of those albums, like you talk, man, Flip Wilson and Lenny Bruce, and I used to go through those and I used to know them. You had to know those out.
You memorize them.
Yeah. The Buck with Bill Cosby, all of that stuff. I used to know those routines, And I used to have a Comedy Classics cassette that all these bits, when George Carlin did the Wonderful Wino and all of that stuff was on there, man. That's how I learned how to comedy write. I would listen to those, the Ajax Liquor Store and those bits. I would listen to those and just like the timing and the way things would land. And that's when you learn to fuss over a word, and someone else who really isn't in comedy be like, well, no, I get it. It's funny. You're like, no, but the music of it ain't right. It's got, I remember I used to do this joke that landed, and I used to end it saying the Pet Shop Boys, and the joke was funny, but Pet Shop Boys wasn't funny enough. And so I changed it to Kasha Gugu. I don't know if you remember that group, but Kasha Gugu just sounds funny.
Yeah, even if you don't know what it is, you're like,
Right. There's just certain words that are I call them magically delicious, Madagascar. Just certain words, just Timbuktu, just that you can play with them and do what you want to do with them, Anesthesiologists, they're just funny words.
Queef.
Yeah.
Funny word.
Yeah, Queen Wa.
Well, I want to thank you for coming to our podcast, the Taco Sandwich podcast.
Thank you so much.
It was a lot of pleasure. It was a pleasure.
You got a theme song,
Yes, they're going to play.
Do? It has an intro and an outro.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to do one for you.
Oh, you want to do something?
No, here we go. Freestyling it.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.